Hey VC, David here with a contest entry into the Day the Music Died contest. It's being hosted by Rod, the HappyHippie The Vinyl Guy, and he's asked us to share 3 artists whose death really shook you, and he wants us to share where we were when we heard the news. In addition to that, he wants us to share 2 or 3 other artists that you may not have been a fan of, but you still appreciate their contributions to the music world. And then lastly, as part of the challenge, he wants you to give a shout out to a channel that you feel like needs more subscribers. So I'm going to start off with George Harrison. I've been a Beatles fan since I was maybe a freshman or sophomore in high school, and my good friend Matt turned me on to the Beatles and let me borrow some of their CDs. I think it was Help and maybe Revolver. And that's all it took. I was a Beatle fan from then on. And I remember my senior year, which was '95, the Beatles anthology was being aired on TV, and then they were releasing all those Beatle anthology CDs with outtakes from some of the different albums over the course of the Beatles discography, whatever. And George Harrison was always my favorite Beatle. One of my favorite tracks from the Beatles was a track from George, which was While My Guitar Gently Weeps. It featured George on vocals, he wrote the song, and it also featured Eric Clapton on guitar, who's another one of my favorites. I remember it was in November of 2001. I was a brand new father to twin daughters. They were barely, they were born in August, so they were just barely 4 months old, and my friend Matt called me and he said, "Hey, did you hear about George?" And I didn't realize, he'd been sick or anything like that, so it was a complete shock to me to hear that he had passed away. So yeah, I remember that very vividly. Next is one that's already been shared by some other people in the VC, but it's still, I can remember where I was when it happened and the impact that it did have on me. And that was the passing of Kurt Cobain. Again, I was in high school. I was a junior in high school. This was in '94, and I was in second period biology class. It had just started. The bell had rang, but we hadn't started class yet, and someone came in and said, "Hey, Kurt Cobain killed himself." And it was just, I can remember just being like gobsmacked. Like, why would someone with that much fame and notoriety do that to themselves? I mean, this was coming off the heels of In Utero and the Unplugged album, and it just, I couldn't believe it. So that's one that's stuck with me over the years. Recently, we lost Scott Weiland. He passed away in December of 2015. And again, my buddy Matt called me and said, "Hey, did you hear about Scott Weiland?" I was like, "No." I was expecting to hear something, that he had been put back in jail or something like that for drugs or something, but I didn't expect to hear that he had OD'd and they had found him dead on his tour bus. You know, I know he'd had some problems with drugs in the past, and he's had lots of quarrels with his bandmates and STP, and also in Velvet Revolver. So I almost was expecting to hear that, you know, he'd got into a fight and got hurt really bad, or he, you know, was kicked out of STP again because of drugs, because they had just reunited and had put out the eponymous album not too long before his passing. So yeah, again, this was a shock to me. Scott Weiland's one of my favorite grunge singers from the 90s and 2000s, and it just wish he was still around, because he was such a great vocalist. He could sing just about anything. He was kind of a chameleon, and I just hated to hear that we lost another great artist to drugs, of all things. The next one for me is Tom Petty. I was at work when I heard the news that he had passed away. I had been following online that, you know, I knew that he had been unconscious and was in the hospital and was non-responsive, but had really hoped that he would pull through and would be okay. But got the news in the mid-afternoon that he didn't make it and that he had passed away. One of those artists that was on my bucket list to see in concert. I never had a chance to see him in concert. I would have loved to have seen him in concert. I used to be in a band, and it was a cover band, and we played several of Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers songs. We did Mary Jane's Last Dance, Learning to Fly, Into the Great Wide Open. Just an awesome catalog, and a tremendous loss to the music community. Alright, so as part of the second part, Rod wanted us to share some artists that we weren't necessarily big fans of, but we knew that they had a tremendous impact. And the first one is Aretha Franklin. You know, I knew all the hits that she had, and I was a casual listener, but it was sad to hear that she had passed away, the Queen of Soul, and just a tremendous loss to the music community, and a very strong woman in the music industry at that. Next is David Bowie. I was familiar with Bowie, you know, his songs like Changes and China Girl and I'm Afraid of Americans, but I was never really that big a fan of Bowie. And it wasn't until he passed that I really started to kind of dig in more into his catalog, and I really do appreciate his music now. I'm sorry that it took his passing for me to really show an interest, but I mean, another tremendous loss. A great artist. So many different styles of music that he had delved into. I really like his Black Star album. It's kind of got the jazz infused with rock or whatever, and it's just a tremendous album. If you don't have it, I strongly suggest you pick it up and take a listen. Next is another one that I was familiar with. I mean, growing up in the 80s and having MTV, you could not know who Prince was. But yeah, Prince was another one that I was familiar with. His songs like the Purple Rain songs and the song Kiss. One of my wife's favorite songs when we first started dating was, I'll just go ahead and say it, Pussy Control. And when you know, one of the first places we went when we started dating was to a club, and she would just go crazy when that song would come on. So yeah, Prince, another loss to the music community. after he passed, you know, I was going through some old YouTube videos of him, and there was one of him playing guitar with Tom Petty and Danny Harrison, who is George Harrison's son. And I always knew Prince was a good guitarist, but he blew me away. They were covering While My Guitar Gently Weeps, and it just floored me at how good. I mean, this guy sounded like Jimi Hendrix playing. I was really impressed. So yeah, so there you go. Kurt Cobain, Scott Weiland, Tom Petty, George Harrison, Aretha Franklin, David Bowie, and Prince are all artists that left their mark on the world and kind of shook me up when I learned of their passing. Alright, the last part of the contest was to give a shout out to a channel that you feel needs more subs. And I'm going to go with Travis at Tonearm Tango. Travis and I are both kind of in the 50 subscribers plus range. I found Travis maybe a week or two ago, and he had posted a video about finding an album by Vanilla Fudge, and it was entitled Vanilla What the Fudge video, and I just thought it was really funny. Travis seems like a really personable guy. He's just got some great content. I think one of his more recent videos that I watched was him promoting some, I guess you'd call it metal orchestra music. But he's got some funny content. He's got some good taste in music. So if you're not familiar with Travis, go check him out. I'll post a link down below in the description. It's Travis, and his channel is called Tonearm Tango. Well, that's going to do it for my submission. Again, Dan from Dan's Vinyl channel said it best. You know, we don't enter these contests to expect to win. It's just fun to be able to talk about music in general and express what music means to us and what we like and dislike, and it's just fun to talk about. So anyways, the contest is going through Monday, May 28th, and it ends at 5 p.m. and Rod is going to be giving away a sealed copy of David Bowie's 1966 album. So get your submissions in, and I look forward to seeing what you guys have to post. And until then, take care. Thanks.